it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones, a holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Our guest tonight has long been a meta-analyzer. Wow, I can't even read my own intro. Of the events of our world, an assessor of the data, a searcher for the truth, and a fearless speaker shedding light into the darkest recesses of this evil-strapped world we live in, alongside a trusty cat named Doshi. Nathan Stolpman of Lift the Veil is here with us tonight to mix it up and bring the badassery. Nathan, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thanks for having me. I'm sorry Doshi's not here yet. Maybe he'll show up halfway through, though.
I would love to meet him. That would be excellent. So I hope so. Before we get started, I want to tell people that they can go to rogueways.org. That's my website. You can find all sorts of free stuff there, like writing and my art and different things. You can also find out about tarot readings. If that's something you're into, you can get a tarot reading from me. I absolutely love to offer those to people who are stuck in a bind or just want some more insight into something that's going on with them. I always like to say it's the cheapest therapy you'll ever receive, so go check that out if you are into it. I also have a book sale right now, Sine Curve of Aeons. My first novel is, I'm selling it for $15 shipped, so that's flat. If you were to go to Amazon and get it, it would be $15 plus tax plus shipping, and you wouldn't get my inscription. So if you want me to write you a happy note at the beginning and send this book to you, then it is yours for $15. So you can buy that. And you would just go to paypal.me/Corey Sharman, and that's QUORRISCHARMYN. If you would like to donate $15, I'll send you that book. I also just started my Subscribe Star, and it is awesome. I'm really excited about it because for years now, people have been asking me to do an audiobook of Sine Curve because some people just don't want to read 400 pages or so. And so I started a Subscribe Star in part to provide that to people. And I'm also going to be doing some other audio stuff, some videos. Like you see here, I talked with Michael Wan about the Susquehanna alchemy that he uncovered at that river there in connection with a meetup I'm doing this summer. So there's going to be a lot of stuff on that site that is available to only subscribers. So if you're interested in that, that is there. And finally, some people just like to donate to support the show, and I really appreciate that. And I always want to tell you that if you do it on YouTube, that is awesome. I still get some money, but they take a huge cut, which I didn't know. And so you're kind of giving YouTube money too, which I think is horrifying because I hate them and they're the worst. And so if you want to donate to the show instead of doing super chats or super stickers or whatever, you can also go to paypal.me/Corey Sharman to donate. And I appreciate all of your support. So thank you so much for doing that. That's all the promos I've got for you. And thank you to everyone who supports the show. It's really, really gratifying to know that this show provides value to you and that you appreciate it. So for the pointless question of the episode, Nathan, I always like to ask people something. And for you, I was wondering what you thought about the Ricky Gervais stunt. Do you think it was real? Do you think it was planned ahead of time and had the okay from the powers that be? Or what's your feeling about that?
Well, I thought it was great. Did it have an okay? It probably had to be loaded into a teleprompter, I'm guessing. So
I didn't see a teleprompter though. Did you? I
mean, I know.
And they kind of showed it from like a lot of different angles. So I was like, is this truly not teleprompted? I don't know.
Yeah, I think he really wrote the jokes, and I think they were pretty funny, and I think he pointed out some things that people were looking forward to hearing. I mean, it became the top trending thing on YouTube. He called out Hollywood, he called out pedos, he said everybody was friends with Epstein. I thought it was pretty good.
Apple and Disney, that was kind of stunning too. I was like, wow, that really doesn't seem like it would have gotten approved, but
yeah. And he kept pushing on it too. I mean, he kept responding to people on Twitter about it and saying people can't take a joke and stuff. But if honestly, if he hadn't done his monologue, I wouldn't have known the Golden Globes happened.
Yeah.
So,
Me too.
As far as, bringing negative attention to the Golden Globes, honestly, I mean, who follows award shows anymore? So he actually brought some interest to something that's otherwise not interesting at all. So,
totally.
as far as that goes, it's pretty good. Yeah, I think he's a good stand-up comic, and he's willing to go against the grain and stuff. So I try not to think things are orchestrated or,
Yeah.
schemes or anything. I think he was just doing his jokes and his stand-up comedy, and it was pretty good.
Yeah. I understand the idea that I do think a lot of things are controlled, and I think a lot of things are scripted, and I think that they want a spectacle in some, lights, and so I can see that aspect of it. But he looked genuinely like nervous about it, and he said multiple times, this will be the last time. But you would do that if you were trying to pull off like a good act, and so it is hard to say. But it was pretty cool to see him go up against all of that power in one speech.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it just makes me wonder, like, what would be the purpose in letting him say all of that if it was sort of like planned by the powers that be. But maybe there is one, and I just have not seen it yet.
Yeah, I can't think of what it would be.
Yeah.
So
one thing that makes me nervous about it is that Fox News was playing it and NBC was playing it, and it was like on YouTube as a suggested something, and so I was like, it is being pushed pretty hard by the mainstream media too, which is interesting. But like you said, it's kind of driving interest, so maybe they just want better stats.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll take it however they can get it. I mean, honestly, Hollywood needs attention, and these movies need attention. So them maybe take it anywhere they can get it. Obviously, it wasn't counterculture enough that YouTube was going to suppress it or anything, or that it didn't get recommended to people. So, it was safe enough.
True.
It was safe enough.
Good point. Well, I always like to ask people, Nathan, like, where did you start out, if you want to rewind and bring us back to sort of your early life?
Sure. Early life. How far back do you want to go?
As far back as you want to go.
Well, geez, my early life. Well, we could talk about a lot of different things, but I guess as far back as we want to go, I was an actor a long time ago. People point that out. People want to say that I'm a plant or what have you. Will point out that I was an actor, but I was.
Yeah.
And I was in a few movies on the East Coast and TV shows and stuff, but very small. And then I moved to LA after college and quit, basically. Never worked in Hollywood or anything. It wasn't for me. And then I taught SATs for a little while and graduate tests. And then I got into sales and I started selling cars. I sold cars for about 12 years, mostly Maseratis. I worked at Ferrari Beverly Hills, Ferrari Silicon Valley. So I was hanging out with, some kind of well-to-do folks.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got to a point where I didn't see the point of what I was doing anymore. And I started learning a lot of these, I started learning about, I finally learned about 9/11. That was in 2015.
Wow.
And then and then I kind of learned about everything back in the time you could actually look and discover things on YouTube.
Because you were in that sweet spot where you could access all of it still. And you probably just like fell down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I was able to consume a lot of content really fast, and all kinds of different things. So I learned about everything. And then I was still selling cars. I was selling Bentleys, and I decided that I was watching people making YouTube videos, and I thought it seemed great. And there were some people that were really funny and did some great content. Like I liked Red Silver J and PK and those guys who were going into false flags and hoaxes. That was kind of the main thing I was doing. And then I made my first video at the end of November in 2015. And I used to make short, this was before anybody was live streaming.
Yeah.
So I made, short videos. And that was about the Bataclan event in Paris, the big Paris terrorist attack, which was in November 2015. And then
it must have keep them straight, but you're bringing it back. Yeah.
Yeah. The one at the theater, and it was like 250 people died, and there was a bombing at the stadium, and there were all kinds of shenanigans that went on with that event. And so I did a video about that. And then the San Bernardino thing happened, the couple, doing that terrorist attack. There was a whole event around it. It was like a 4-hour drama where they went home.
Was that the one where they went into their house? Like the whole media stormed their apartment or something? I was like, this is ridiculous.
Right. So they show up, they do the shooting. It's a couple, and then they go home apparently, and during the shooting or on their way out of the shooting, she's posting on Facebook her support for ISIS, and then they kind of disappear for 4 hours, and then all of a sudden there's a car chase, and it brings them right back to the scene of the crime, basically. And there's a huge shootout. I mean, it was a major, major, major production.
Yeah.
So then I spent the next couple of months basically dissecting that event, and kind of immediately started to have a little success on YouTube back when you could, right?
Back when you could get natural, organic sort of growth.
Right, right. But however, I monetized my channel maybe 5 weeks in, and the day after I monetized it, my whole channel was demonetized. So I had that happen to be pretty early on.
Wow.
So
you were
they weren't really into false flags and hoax stuff. So I kind of struggled through that. And then, so I worked on that for a long time, and then covered a lot of other events like it. Eventually got into the moon landing, started covering that. And then that got more attention from the people in the flat earth community and everything. And that's when I had my first interview. And then just kind of went from there. I ended up covering satanic ritual abuse, and had guests on about that. One of the big series I did was on the Hampstead satanic ritual abuse case.
That's those two kids in England that were in the commercial later.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Creepy.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. With Ricky Dearman and the two kids having those long police interviews, and I had on their mother, and actually was the victim of gang stalking from that group.
Wow.
You know, someone in the, not in the truth community exactly, but someone who's around truthers, I guess you could say, actually got involved in gang stalking me with them. And
they gang stalked you?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying the mother of the Hampstead kids.
No,
wow.
Actually me. So
you've been gang stalked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. That's fascinating.
It's pretty crazy. So, and that was kind of before people knew exactly how it all went down, but people actually confessed to being involved in it. And that's the only way you can know for sure. Yeah.
So, okay. I want to hear all about this then. But first, before we get into the gang stalking, can I ask you, do you remember did you hear about a case recently that was also satanic ritual abuse, and it was a young girl? God, I have the worst memory. I think it was in Holland or somewhere, and the whole town had gathered around this house of her aunt, who was trying to keep her from being taken back by the protective services. Did you hear about that one?
No, I haven't heard about it, but I'll look into it.
Yeah, you should. It's crazy because the whole town turned out. It was like the whole town knew what was going on, and everyone was together trying to protect her. And that's like the situation where I would think that it would actually work. Like, everyone around you is there to support this kid, and still they came in. They came in with, like, I don't know, tens of police and child protective services, a judge. It was like they brought like the full force to take this girl back, and the aunt wasn't letting her go, and they eventually just like ripped her out of her arms and took her. And it was crazy because it's like there's got to be something about it where they're fixated on this specific child, because at that point, with all that media and all those people calling it out and trying to stop it, why wouldn't you just let that one kid go and like go prey on some other kid? Not that I want them to prey on anyone, but you know what I mean?
Right,
and the way they're looking at it, like, why go to all that trouble? But
it's hard to figure out, maybe just for the principle, but they will all, you will see whole communities basically band together. I mean, it's pretty real. It's pretty real.
I don't know how you couldn't if you saw a child being harmed,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so the gang stalking. So this is before, you didn't know what gang stalking was when it was starting, or you had an idea of what it was?
No, I don't think I understood it exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it was organized, tactical. They would do certain things, try to make me feel like I was in danger. And then they'd put up, write articles about me, try to smear me, put up imitation Twitter accounts, like a fake Twitter account that's supposed to be me, contact all of my followers on Twitter to tell them negative things about me, contact people I was working with to tell them negative things about me. And so it was all kinds of drama. That was back in 2017. And I don't think, I was telling people what was happening, but I don't think people understood or necessarily believed me.
People don't believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but it's unusual because people have actually confessed to being involved in it.
Yeah.
So at least I have that. At least I have, some kind of evidence. So
because that would make you go insane otherwise if you're trying to explain to people what's happening to you and they're kind of like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. I had someone actually impersonate being my girlfriend on the internet and messing with me that way, and nobody would believe that, but that was true too, because this other person was working with her too to mess with me this whole time, and it was designed to make me crazy, and I did kind of go crazy, actually.
I don't know how you wouldn't let it get to you on some level, like, because it's really constant, it never ends.
It was really, really bad. So, but eventually I got through it, and then on the other side of it, I figured out how to manage it and how to not get in that situation again, how to change my behavior so I don't get in that situation again. But also, in the end, and I still continued to cover child abuse cases after that. And then probably most well-known, I got involved with Isaac Cappy and had him on my show. That was the first interview he did, although he'd already been booked on InfoWars, but that was the first interview he did. And that resulted in all kinds of the same kind of stuff, smears, defamation, character assassination. And then regular people get involved too. Regular people get roped into it, but part of it is an organized attempt to take you down, basically, in whatever way possible. So in the end, I mean, as far as where I'm at now, I'm really reluctant to cover child abuse.
Wow.
because it's pretty hard on, me and my wife and stuff to have to deal with it. And the people around it too, even well-meaning people get so wound up that they end up, regular people end up attacking you. Some lady was trying to call for, what do you call it? A wellness check to have the police sent to my house and stuff. And I've already had that happen before with people. So, I mean, it's just a crazy world out there when you're trying to get into topics that are kind of sensitive. So
it's crazy to send the police to someone's house. It's like that could literally end up in your death or the death of your pet or
and it was my dad's house too. I mean, I was living with my dad, so it was even worse. But that happened, and so I've kind of been through the ringer with all this stuff, and learned how to manage it and learn how to deal with the trolls and stuff. And
well, you're doing amazingly for someone who started waking up in 2015. We're only in 2020 and you've already gone through the full gamut of what you can be put through. So that's kind of amazing.
I fell down the rabbit hole pretty fast. Once I realized that they could do 9/11, right? Because I figured before I learned all that stuff, I figured that it was impossible.
Yeah.
That things could be faked, like the moon landing or 9/11, because too many people would have to be involved theoretically, and somebody would say something, or I just figured it was impossible. But then I saw, through some of the videos on YouTube that go through it, basically how they could have done and how they did 9/11. And then I said, well, anything's possible. Anything's possible if they could do that. So, started looking into pretty much everything. It just turns out a lot of what we're shown on TV is just not true.
Right.
It's just fake.
A lot of it very easily shown to be not true. You can find these clips of, CNN in the parking lot with the wind blowing and they're acting like it's some huge tornado or something. And then some guy just casually strolls by in the background or whatever. Some of it's like that, where you can just show people they literally make things up. But other of it is a little bit more tricky. It's pretty hard to get through the programming that's emotional, where people don't want to see. And I think that that's part of why things like that do work, and not everyone has to be in on it, because we do just get caught up in what we want to believe. And it's like what you were saying, where people wouldn't believe you about gang stalking. It's I've had some horrible things happen in my life too. And when I tell people Like they do not want to believe that can happen to someone. So they're just kind of like, no, you must be wrong.
Right.
Like this has to have happened this way because it's easier for me to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that happens with stuff, like Sandy Hook, I suppose, is the main thing. And that it probably is the thing you can't talk about the most.
Yeah.
Probably.
Because it's kids.
I guess so. And people, and that's the thing I probably had the most trouble with YouTube about, is talking about Sandy Hook and having Wolfgang Halbig on. I mean, mostly I never really talked about it that much. Yeah. But having Wolfgang on my show, and I got into an argument with another YouTuber about it who was saying Sandy Hook truthers are all morons, and I had to get into it with him about it. Just resulted in bad things happening to me. So, people react emotionally, and understandably. Who would think we live in a world where they'd pretend that school children got killed by this, autistic kid or whatever they want us to think.
It seems unthinkable.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the motives are sort of like hard to parse out because there's so many possible motives, and none of them are kind of like pinpointable, but they all kind of work together in this like gestalt of like this general sort of plan that they're trying to carry out. So I guess I want to ask you about two things about that. Like, what do you think the motives were? And then also I'd like to hear about Wolfgang Halbig in your interview with him and what you think about the things that he presented in his, because I've always liked him and liked his ideas. And then I more recently have been kind of confronted with people who are generally inclined to sort of, look into all these conspiracy things and not discount them all, but like really think that he's full of shit. And so that kind of surprised me because I'm like, oh, like what is this? So I wonder what you think about that as well.
Right. You asked about the motive for Sandy Hook. Yeah. Assuming that it was some kind of hoax, right? Which we can't really say, but assuming it was, gun control, I think for sure.
There's a big one.
And then, from what I understand with these operations, it's always multiple levels of things that are going on. And I think that there are a number of things, most things are designed to create some kind of fear and to use as some kind of a control mechanism because, when we're in fear, we're a lot easier to control. So,
definitely.
But as far as that one goes, I guess gun control, which they didn't get much done because of it. And it kind of shows you that if that didn't make it happen, then I don't know what is. I mean, realistically, even though a lot of events happen and people are worried about more gun control, it's obviously really hard for them to actually make something happen. Yeah, pull it off. So, and then as far as Wolfgang goes, I think he's a totally legitimate guy. I think what happens is people think to themselves, well, if he's legitimate, then how is he still alive? Or why is he allowed to talk? Or why is he so popular? If he's legitimate. And then and there's the same kind of people that think anybody who's popular gains any kind of prominence must be a plant, which I've had said about me a million times too.
Yeah.
So, that's the kind of people who say that sort of thing. As far as his information, well, he genuinely has a background in school safety.
Yeah.
He genuinely was a police officer, sheriff's officer, whatever it was. He genuinely worked on crisis management plans for mass shooters. And so he knows about this stuff legitimately. And I think he has legitimate questions. I mean, you just have to take the information that he puts out there. I don't know if he's right about every single thing.
Right.
And I don't know if he focuses on the best things to make an argument.
Yeah.
But, I believe him. And in fact, I'm on his email chains. So all the emails he sends out to the FBI and to all these journalists, I mean, he's sending out emails all the time saying,
that's cool.
I'm looking for this information. Why aren't you guys listening to me? I have this information, and then he's talking about Parkland and that shooting as well. So no, he's legit, I mean, he's obviously got some kind of protection where, whatever you want to call it, the armor of God or whatever. Right. And he's been able to make it this far, but I'm sure he's suffered quite a bit because of it, and his family too. So
true.
And hopefully he'll make it through these court cases. I mean, it's weird. I didn't think they'd win any money. I thought everything that was said was totally covered under freedom of speech.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody inspired any kind of harassment or encouraged any kind of harassment.
I don't know how it could be harassment for people to ask questions and make videos about their questions anyway. Like if that's your family and your kid really did die, I think you have bigger problems to deal with than what people on the internet are saying, and maybe you should move on. Like you don't have to watch it. No one's harassing you by doing that.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's a whole different psyop. The fact that they've moved to all these lawsuits and everything, and I can't believe Alex Jones is losing. Although I don't know if he's putting up a real defense either. That's the other thing, because Wolfgang won his case, or
did he?
At least, his first case against Lenny Posner.
I thought he lost.
Lenny Posner sued him first,
right?
And eventually he dropped the case because he was forced to show up for a video deposition, and he refused to show up. Yeah, and he just dropped the case.
So I remembered that part, but then I thought something changed and.
Well, now there are new lawsuits, but and Jim Fetzer lost his suit. He wrote "Nobody Died at Sandy Hook." He wrote that book, and he got in trouble for that. And then Alex Jones has been losing money too and losing cases. So as far as I know, though, Wolfgang is still kicking along, and I could have him on again. I might end up doing that. I might end up having him on D-Live if he's doing interviews.
That'd be cool.
Just to see where he's at with the case.
And to offer him some support, like, you're not alone.
Yeah, right. So I feel lucky I had a chance to have him on. I mean, those videos, even though I made sure that we never said nobody died at Sandy Hook, I made sure even to tell him, we have to kind of, stay away from saying that just so the video can stay on YouTube. And even though it was about a court case, we were talking about legal matters. Those videos were all eventually removed from YouTube.
YouTube is the worst.
Yeah. I mean, they basically made a rule which I call the Sandy Hook rule, which is that you can't deny a well-documented violent event took place. And so that's it. You can't do it. It's one of the rules.
So you can't deny that. Okay. Yeah. I didn't even know that was a rule.
Don't say Holocaust.
Wow, yeah. That's the one I've always been like really, really wary of. I'm sure they're on that one like so fast.
What happened?
Well, yeah, because it's working too, because I know that there's some people who I've met recently who are not kind of in this whole sphere and have not necessarily considered these things. And, then they hear me saying stuff and they're like, wait, do you actually think that like no kids died? And I'm like, well, it's possible, right? It's possible that no kids died, or it's possible that this has been a false flag event. And here's this and this, and I try to approach it from that angle and like answer questions they have, but they then come back at me with these videos now of like clips of like Alex Jones and like Wolfgang Halbig in court, and they're like, see, this has been proven now, it's been debunked. And I'm like, how convenient for you that the top research results are going to report this, and then you're going to take that and it's going to seem pretty convincing, and you're going to say the laws behind it, and you're going to move on and never ask any more questions.
Yeah, that's what happens when they get rid of all of the real information on YouTube, and all that's left is the fake info. And people Google stuff, and that's what comes up.
And Google is, as we all know very well at this point, super manipulated. And I don't even know anymore, because I would use DuckDuckGo and I'd feel like pretty good about that. And now I'm like, I don't even really know if any of it is very good.
It's better. DuckDuckGo is better. But yeah, it's hard to find good information, period. Yeah, unless you know exactly what you're looking for. Right.
So then what about the issues in Virginia right now? Because it seems like their gun control maybe is actually working. Or maybe it won't,
we have red flag laws. And red flag laws are blatantly unconstitutional, I believe.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure when the challenges are going to come, but that's something that Donald Trump is totally behind. Lots of Republicans are totally behind. I mean, it doesn't make much sense. So as far as passing something that's totally, like I said, I think it's unconstitutional, that's already happened. So, that is a fact now. And then as far as what's going on in Virginia, I followed it a little bit, and it's going to be hard to force local jurisdictions to carry out this law if they don't want to.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the end game is. And as far as red flag laws and stuff, that would fall under that same category of things that they won't enforce. So I don't know if the federal government's going to have to come in, and then that's not going to go over well. So somebody's going to have to back down. And I don't think it's going to be these so-called sanctuary cities. I don't see them backing down on this. People don't back down on Second Amendment stuff. So really interesting to see which way that goes.
I love the use of sanctuary city in that way because it's such a reversal of what it was meant for, and it's so awesome. But yeah, I think that's one of those things where, you know, it's like really popular to hate on the police, and I've had my own really negative interactions with the police that were super unfair and not legal and very harmful, and so I get that whole sentiment for sure. But I also think we have to come to a place where we realize that these are our possible allies, and they're possibly the people who are going to have our backs in exactly these types of times. We hope, at least. So that's the best we can do, is hope and encourage that. But if we are hateful and automatically kind of reject that possibility, then I think we're a lot weaker.
Possibly. Well, and you know, things might change in Virginia and those kind of places too. Now that people are awake to the agenda, you know, those people could get voted out. I mean, it could change the composition of the government there in Virginia eventually. So, you know, we'll see what the reaction is to it.
Yeah, and I hope that it doesn't involve any foreign powers, and I hope that it doesn't involve the UN.
Right. Well, so far we haven't seen the UN. We haven't seen FEMA camps yet, you know.
Somebody was saying that they were hiring, the UN was hiring in New York, and I was like, wait, what? How does that even work? Like,
there is some kind of position open. I have seen that, and that's a real thing. So I can't remember the name of it. Probably somebody will pop it up in the chat, but that's true. You know, I try not to, you know, because that would be when things would be that extreme, you know, and take away people's rights to that level all at once. I just find it unlikely that they'll go that far, because then, you know, people freak out. You know, they have to do this one drip at a time, I feel like. So bringing in the UN soldiers, rounding everybody up into camps, I think we're a little ways from that. You know, we're going to see.
Could happen, but not right away.
Yeah, exactly. They have to move us down the road a little bit more first.
That's part of the thing I think about when we were talking about like Sandy Hook, and they didn't pull off gun control with that, and they haven't pulled it off yet, but we are seeing these kind of laws, and it is this sort of like slow accumulation, and it's almost like that idea that if you repeat something enough, it just like becomes the truth, that even if we're fully against it, even if we're kind of united and against it, if they're just like repeating the idea and repeating the idea and repeating the idea, and we're just getting used to it, and it's almost like we just get like worn down and start accepting it as like, yep, people want gun control, even though I don't think that many people do.
Somehow we got to this place with red flag laws, and people aren't totally up in arms about it. So, you know, and they just can't, even though they can't show any of the things that they propose ever after these so-called mass shootings would do anything to stop the mass shooting. Nothing. I mean, you know, these red flag laws, if the only things they could possibly prevent, I could see an argument about this, is suicide. Probably.
Maybe. Yeah.
Right? And they already have laws that they already have, I think in a lot of states, 5150, or where you're considered possibly a harm to yourself or others. They can already take you in and lock you up in a mental facility for a few days. And if that happens to you, at least in California, you can't have a gun for 5 years or something. So, I mean, it already kind of existed. And in the case of these mass shootings, I mean, there's no evidence that these characters showed, you know, necessarily that they were a harm to themselves and others in a lot of cases, you know, at least like in the Walmart shooting, for example. I mean, the red flag laws would have done nothing about that, and these synagogue shootings and so forth.
Well,
so
it'd be interesting to know, too, how many of these people even got their guns legally in the first place, allegedly, even. Right?
Right. Well, that's the other thing. So at least in Texas, this church shooting, you know, they passed a law that said you can take guns to church. Liberals freaked out. And then all of a sudden, take this guy down, and it's on video and everything. And what can people say? I mean, obviously,
well, some people think
somebody had a gun.
Some people think that's a false flag too, and I'm like, well, it doesn't have any of the real characteristics of it, right? Like,
right. What would be the point?
and what would
right?
be the point? Because it's on the opposite side from what they seem to want. And some of these people are saying like, well, yeah, but both sides need like an event every once in a while to keep them divided. And I'm like, well, that is not a bad argument, but I still think this really happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can see the argument. That's the other side. So the so-called good guys, even though there are no good guys, but the so-called good guys maybe pulled off a false flag of their own.
Right.
It's possible, but it looked pretty legit to me.
Yeah. Well, someone was like, one of the things that shows that it's fake is that not everyone was like freaking out all of a sudden. I'm like, dude, if you've ever been in a moment where something actually is happening, people are very slow to react to it. Because it's just kind of like the thing we were talking about earlier. It's like people don't want to think that bad things are happening. And even when they're happening right in front of them, they're like, that's not what happened. That's not happening. Yeah. I'm not going to respond until somebody screams and runs, and then everyone might scream and run.
Right. Well, just like you have people on the other side that would never consider that Sandy Hook might have been something different than what they said it was. You have people on, kind of our side of things that think everything is fake.
Yes.
Like there's this guy on DLive who thinks nobody died in 9/11. Nobody died in 9/11. I
heard that argument.
And I think to myself, oh my God, it's like nobody ever dies in anything. That's kind of that point of view. And I've kind of been there, but where you just question all the news,
And you should. You should question everything.
Yeah.
It's definitely not bad to have that open-mindedness. Well, and I always say, like, I could be wrong about anything. Right now, here's where I'm at on this thing, but that could change if I have more information. So don't take my final word for it. But a lot of the key to all of this that they're kind of seeping in and taking away rights is this, like, craze about mental health and almost to this, like, obsessive point where there's, like, TV shows about it, movies about it, and we're, like, talking about it constantly, and there's commercials all the time. And I just recently left the career of teaching, and it was this huge focus in teaching where we're like always, having like events about it, like in the gym with like an assembly, and it's like this crazy amount of conditioning going into this mental health thing. So what do you think about all of that?
Well, I'd be interested in learning more about what they're talking to kids about in school. I mean, I'm thinking of it in terms of the whole gun control thing. I mean, Donald Trump, every time there's a mass shooting, says the guy must be sick. He says, oh, that guy was a sick puppy, or he was mentally ill. And every time blames mental illness, even though in a bunch of these cases, you don't see any mental illness, like the Walmart shooting, the synagogue shootings, the shooting in Christchurch. You don't see any signs of what people would call mental illness. And if you look at it statistically, people with mental illness are not much more likely to commit violent crimes. Right. So so I find it, I find it scary. I used to really be insulted by it, or I used to really react emotionally to it because I've been diagnosed before as bipolar. I don't show any signs of it. But still, and I know there are
it's in your medical history.
There are lots of people on the internet who I think are pretty crazy themselves, and I don't think, they're liable to go out and shoot somebody. And, and it is a really bad stigma to say that somebody, even if they're schizophrenic, right? People who are schizophrenic aren't necessarily trying to hurt anybody.
Some of the coolest people I know are schizophrenic.
So I find that really disturbing. But then I guess, on the other side of things, there's this huge focus, and the Royals came out recently and did some kind of campaign about mental illness and having like a mental wellness day, or, when people were supposed to all talk to each other about mental illness that day. So there is kind of campaign, to bring it into the forefront and to make people always think about it, and maybe to think that more people, I'm not sure exactly what the agenda is. What were you telling people in school? What was it's interesting. So there was one exception to this rule, and I'll get to that maybe, but in general, it's like the message is kind of like, any amount of depression is like this mental illness, and any amount of anxiety is a mental illness, and you can get medication for these mental illnesses, and you shouldn't feel stigmatized about them. You should talk about them openly. You should go to your doctor. You should go to your parents. A lot of teachers would kind of
it's almost like it's easier for you to teach if you can medicate all your kids. So like a lot of teachers would be like, well, this kid has to have ADD or the whatever, or they have, what's the stupidest one? I can't remember the word for it now. That's so funny. It's like resistance disorder. I can't remember.
Oh, right. They have new diagnoses
Yeah.
they came up with, right? Based on, and it's basically like, oh, he's hyper, not even like the hyperactive thing, but just
There's
someone
one
who
that's
doesn't
like,
want to listen or
I wish I could remember the name. Maybe it'll come from me, but it's something like authority resistance disorder or
right,
something. And you're just like,
right.
oh my God, that's like anybody who's thinking
Yeah.
clearly.
Yeah,
So
I definitely would have been diagnosed with that. I'm glad, because I did get along with my teachers really well in school. I was an excellent student, but I would get thrown out of class all the time, and people were so.
because teachers are
I'm
mostly
lucky,
egomaniacal, like controlling, like
yeah,
freaks.
yeah, right. I'm glad I never ended up on any kind of medication when I was in school. But growing up nowadays,
It's
it
heavy
just
now.
seems like yeah, it's really unfortunate, and also depression and those things. A lot of those are passing things
Exactly.
that you don't need any medication for. They're just things that happen in life,
And
and
when you're a
obviously,
teenager, you're like insane. Like you're on all these
right,
hormones and all these like stresses, and the world is crazy. And so, yeah, you're going to be like anxious and depressed sometimes. And if the whole world's telling you that's a mental illness, like and you get attention for that, and then you get to get
right,
medicated, and then you get easier classes, and you get easier assignments. And like, why wouldn't you, self designate as that or even adopt the behaviors that go along with it so that you can be seen that way. And it's a really sick cycle. It's really fucked
wow,
up.
yeah, that is really messed up.
It's disturbing. And my when I left the last school I was at, it was almost all of my students were medicated for something.
Really, almost all of them.
Almost all of them. I was at an alternative school, so like it's
Right.
a little, it's that kind of the students who are more likely maybe to be medicated are going to kind of end up there, but it was still pretty disturbing. And the years before that, when I was at like the regular school, it was still a really high number, and kids would always come to me with the little checklists. If you've ever seen those, this is how doctors basically diagnose anxiety and
Right.
depression, is with a checklist.
Right.
And so they'd bring me the checklist and I'd have to fill it out for them, and I always had this huge guilt about it, because I'm like, this is going to be used to medicate you probably for the rest of your life if you never see through it. But there was one, it gave me so much hope. It was this troupe of actors, and they had put together this short, play in which they showed that a lot of people experience these things as a passing thing, like you just said, and that to treat it, you don't always have to do medication, that you can talk to friends, and that you can go outside, and that spending time in nature actually alleviates a lot of these
Right.
symptoms more than pills often. And all these other, eat healthier, and do something you love, and do something for someone else, and all these things. And it was really, really heartening. I was like, thank God for you. Like,
Yeah.
because that message just is not getting out there really.
Yeah, we're in a weird time where you have to turn to medicine or something to fix your problems.
Right.
And then, you can get into the whole transgender thing where
Yeah.
you have to totally change yourself just to fix yourself somehow, that
Yeah.
you can't, that the way you were born, there's something wrong with it, and it goes all the way from just being medicated to, transitioning over to trying to be a totally different person.
Surgically.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. They
that's
don't
extreme.
teach people that. I guess it has to do with losing faith, religion and faith and things, because if you think that God made you a particular way for a reason, then you'd be less inclined to
True.
try to change yourself, right? With drugs
Yeah.
and so forth, right? And so people have to know, nobody is taught anymore that maybe you're the way you are for some kind
Right.
of reason. Maybe you're not the same as everybody else, but deal with it basically, and learn to live with it. And it's disturbing to hear that story from you about all those kids being on medication, because who knows what it does to them,
Exactly. And I think about like the same with the sort of hormone therapy that they will give to kids for transitioning. It's like, who knows the possibly permanent effects of these things for the rest of your life, and you're too young. You're literally too young to understand. I hated hearing that as a kid, but when I learned this scientific fact that your brain isn't done developing, especially the part of your brain that is capable of long-term planning, until you're 25.
Yeah, we
But
basically shouldn't make decisions until we're about 25
yeah,
years old. You know?
like you shouldn't be allowed to.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
make
shouldn't be allowed
decisions,
to
but don't make
vote or anything.
no voting, no taking on student debt, no going to the
Right,
military. Like, yeah, no transitioning your body.
right.
But if we say that, then we're bigots or something.
Yeah, you can't say anything even close to that. You can't even say sex is a real thing, right? Otherwise, they say that's transphobic. It's hard to believe.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that that's crazy talk too. I don't understand that one at
No,
all.
yeah, exactly. We live in a world, one of the main things that's important to me is freedom of speech, just in
Yes.
general. And it's weird to me you can't say things that are factually true without being called maybe racist or homophobic for saying them, for
Right.
things that are just, at least there's evidence that you can use to back it up, and you can literally get shut down or called I mean, that's we live in a really scary time as far as that goes too, as far as freedom of speech goes.
Especially because it's so easy for someone to shut down, not just even what you're saying, but if you have like a business or like that guy who was going into to get his balls waxed at the
Oh, right.
yeah,
Right,
like I'm
exactly.
like, so that business was then threatened, and this is people's livelihoods and whoever owns it,
Right,
but also all the people who work there. And also, shouldn't that person be charged with sexual assault?
right,
Like, if you're
right.
trying to make someone touch your genitals, is that not sexual assault? I think they should have countersued.
I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, we're in a time where I hope one day we'll look back and say, wow, that was really fucked
That
up.
was a
You
close
know,
call. Yeah.
yeah, we had it all wrong back then. So, but right now we're right in the middle of it, and it's kind of scary. One of the reasons that I'm not on YouTube, just because you can't say things.
I think I'm small enough to where I can still say things so
Yeah,
far.
you can get away with
Just
it.
crossed, yeah.
Yeah, you can get away with it for now.
But hopefully everyone is realizing that I'm also on D Live. So if I ever disappear from YouTube, they can come find me there. Because I don't plan to stop, even if I do get messed with there. But I had
Good.
some hope recently because there was this it's really stupid, like, I don't know what it was, if it was like 60 Minutes or something. And they were like interviewing the YouTube someone exec that like is in
Yeah.
charge of censorship,
Was
basically.
Shicky when Washiki was on?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't it kind of seem like they were like rolling back some of their censorship, or am I totally wrong?
When they talk, they
They
act
say that.
as if they say YouTube is a free speech platform. We're not trying to shut anybody down. But then she also said, they reduced traffic by 70% for, borderline content, which is content that they say doesn't break the rules. Content that doesn't break the rules, but it's just kind of close to breaking the rules, where you're going to make sure nobody can see it. And that's what happened to me with my show. I noticed it in 2019, they just turned it up to 11. And with my channel, at least, the subscriber growth just stopped dead.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that was it. So, and then the numbers went down, and that happened for all kinds of different channels too. And now they've done some studies where this whole YouTube radicalization theory has basically been completely debunked.
Do you think
Where
people
they
are
said,
going into YouTube and like becoming insane?
yeah. Well, that's the theory being pushed by the New York Times and a bunch of other outlets, is that it was the YouTube algorithm that was radicalizing people, mostly to vote for Donald Trump. I mean, that's kind of the end game of it. Everything changed in 2016 when Donald Trump got elected, and they thought to themselves, shit,
Oops.
how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? And they made it seem like people are being influenced by YouTube videos, that's what's changing people's views. It's been debunked, but that's, they still push it out there.
It's also crazy though, because if there is a video that can influence you to think a certain way or vote for a certain person, it's because it's like striking a chord with you. And it's not like people are so retarded that they cannot parse information correctly. And I hate that condescending viewpoint that like we need to be taken care of because we can't possibly assess the information for ourselves and take in what's real and like leave behind what's not. And if you really think people are that idiotic and stupid, like we shouldn't live in this type of a society anyway. We should all just be like kept in, a barn somewhere or something. Like, what do you actually think of yourselves? I've heard people
Right.
make that argument too, like, well, we need to make sure that people are like giving good information. I'm like, just give people whatever information they want. They are if you need to trust them or teach them how to parse through it if you don't think
Right.
they're already there. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
The other thing is the National Enquirer has been right there in line
Yeah.
with the grocery store for however long with Bat Boy and all these other things. Nobody was worried about that.
Nobody goes
was
around
worried,
thinking Bat Boy's real. I mean,
right?
I'm sure
I
some
mean,
people do, and he might
maybe
be.
some people do, but
Right.
nobody was worried about people
No.
being exposed to this stuff and it leading to some kind of dangerous behavior or anything. And it's still there. I mean, fake news has been around since the beginning of time. And it's just all of a sudden, and I do think it has a lot to do with Donald Trump getting elected.
It seems to have
But
ramped
all of
things up a
sudden-
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, because before that it was still different. But yeah, they don't trust people. I mean, it's basically kind of like a fascist.
Yes.
It's the fascist left basically, and it's a elitist, of course, too, where some power is deciding what information is real, what information is good for you, and then everything else has to be banned somehow or not allowed to be spoken.
That's what I'm like. You trust that random, faceless, nameless person to decide what you get to know. That's what you're asking for if you're asking for censorship.
Right.
Oh, that's insane. That really gets me going. So, because I just know real people who actually argue it, and it drives me insane. But I see Doshi has joined you there.
Yeah, Doshi's here. I'm really glad. He's relaxed.
If he ever wants to manage my show, I've got a spot opening, so let me know. So I was told to ask you, what are gay ops?
Gay ops. Okay, this is important.
Okay.
Gay ops are any well, actually, there's a definition for it. It's people working together on the internet in order to smear somebody, but usually it has to do with deplatforming or shutting down your money sources. So there's a notorious guy out there. This guy, yeah, we can say his name. We're on a small channel. This guy, Gabe Hoffman, who's known for shutting down people's YouTube channels or going after people. He's threatened to sue me before. And there's a clip of him bragging about how he helped get Owen Benjamin taken down off of Instagram. And he goes through the whole technique. He said, first thing you do is you collect all these tweets, and then the next thing you do is you contact the press, and then they're going to call Instagram, and then Instagram will shut them down, basically. And so anything that people do, or if they say, or let's say somebody's making fun of you on their channel and using clips from your show, not in a way that violates fair use or anything, but you go and you copyright strike them. That's gay ops. Anytime you go after free speech, basically, that's gay ops.
It's like the crowd stalking sort of thing, but aimed at taking away your livelihood, like you said.
Like my PayPal has been, I can't use PayPal. So, and I assume that somebody had to do something to make that happen because, I don't know. I don't even think I'm that controversial,
No.
But obviously somebody told somebody there something about me, gave them some clips, whatever it was. And now I can't use PayPal anymore, which fortunately it didn't have a huge effect on me, but, I had to change the way our shop runs,
Right now, that's my only way of taking in money from anyone or making my shop run. So so what do you use, or do you want to not say it?
There are other payment processors you can use if you have like a retail site or something. So there are other payment processors you can use, but I obviously don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
I
That
don't
makes
want
sense.
to become a target.
Totally.
But yeah. And then of course DLive, which uses that kind of cryptocurrency.
Yeah, what's up with the lemons? I don't even understand that. It's just a cryptocurrency thing, and we're
it's something that runs on the blockchain. It's kind of like internet money or gamer cash. They have something similar on Twitch. It's kind of like super chats, except you buy the currency first, and then you can contribute it.
Okay.
And then it can be cashed out.
Oh, you can cash it out.
Yeah. It's similar to like if you went to a casino, you buy chips, you gamble with them, and then you can turn them back into cash. It's kind of the same thing. You go on there, you buy lemons, you can donate them to streamers,
Yeah.
and then the streamers can take them and cash them out.
I was just like throwing all mine at all my like people in the chat room, so I guess I should like consider my that this is actually money, but
yeah,
it's so cool to share it. Like
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's another good backup. I mean, I'm glad DLive exists for that reason.
It seems awesome so far, and I hope that it stays as like free of censorship as it seems to be so far.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll find out. But there are a lot of pretty prominent people who have major problems with censorship that are on there now and doing okay. So
yeah,
hopefully I'm somewhere down the list of being banned. One, it's going to start with somebody else first before it gets all the way down to me. But yeah, fingers crossed. It's a platform that's working out okay for live streamers. So
that's good. Well, and then I just, like I said earlier, I had started my Subscribe Star. It seems way better than Patreon so far. So far, I've heard nothing about censorship, and so far their ratio of what you get to what people are paying is really nice. So that's a nice option as far as I know. And it is good to hear there's alternatives, for payments, because it's like we have to do this. We have to start finding these alternatives and promoting them so that these monolithic sort of structures can't just own us. And I don't know. Before I came to DLive, I just kind of was like, I've been watching this happen for like 10 years where we always find like a new platform and everyone's like, everybody run over to Ello and that's our new social media. And like a bunch of people go make their profile and it's like all of the like most kind of woke people or awake people or whatever you want to say, but no one else comes. And so like the masses are still kind of somewhere else. And so you're just like now in an echo chamber of people who already agree and wanted to get away. And then like it just seems kind of like pointless to me. But DLive seems to be attracting a lot of people so far and getting bigger and bigger, and so that gives me some hope. And I don't think like we have to be obsessed with like reaching the masses, and at some level you can't necessarily reach people, but I just think it's good to not abandon the places where you can still talk to the normies, so to speak.
yeah I mean,
because they need to wake up too, or they need to have like little fish hooks thrown out.
It's true. I mean, we've gotten now the way things have become, the way they don't allow things to be suggested. They don't allow things to go, to trend or to go viral. It is a lot harder. I mean, you are mostly talking to people who are already kind of on the same wavelength. And even on DLive, I mean, that's definitely the case. I mean, most of the people who are there are kind of generally the same kind of counterculture. And so, I stopped using YouTube, even though I have 92,000 subscribers and I still get, at least 5,000 views if I post a video up there. I just don't do it, kind of out of principle at this point.
Yeah. You don't want to make them money.
Yeah, I don't want to make them any money, even though my channel, they don't allow me to monetize anything, but they don't let you reach new people. I mean, that's kind of the point. And they've shown that. I mean, they will not suggest your videos to somebody who hasn't seen them before, who hasn't seen you before.
Well, and I've even had people who have subscribed to my channel, multiple people, multiple times, been like, I'm subscribed, and then I go in and I can't find you, and then I have to search for you, and then it's hard to find you, and then I have to resubscribe when I do, and I'm like, and I'm not even big. I think I have like 1,000, people on YouTube, and that's it. Like, so they're even doing that to me. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. We live in it's messed up. I mean, it's gotten to that point where I don't know how people get to this information anymore. Like if somebody wanted to learn about 9/11, you can still find some stuff,
right.
You can still find some stuff about the Oklahoma City bombing. You can still find some stuff on that. But if you wanted to look into Sandy Hook, if you wanted to look into some of these other events, it's very difficult. I mean, you really, really would have to know where to look, how to look. If you want to find out about vaccines, vaccine injury and stuff, I mean, that's almost impossible to find anything without already following somebody on Instagram or Facebook. I mean, they basically made it impossible, but people are still finding out. I mean, obviously, you see people protesting in front of government buildings and stuff. So it's obviously the information is still getting out there. And some people still blow up. I mean, you have people who are who have pretty significant audiences, whatever you think about them, Owen Benjamin,
Yeah. Well, that's
and Nick
been
Fuentes.
that's been seemingly like really organic. It's like because you can watch him waking up in like real time, and that's been one of the awesome things about watching his journey is like he's learning things as he goes, and then he's talking about them as he learns them. And I think that's very effective way of sort of reaching people if they were already following him and they weren't necessarily there, but it's like they're seeing that sort of compassionate of like, oh yeah, that's how I react to this too. It's like that makes you a little bit more open to sort of receiving the information maybe. And so I think that process has been like fascinating. I really have enjoyed that.
Hold on 1 second. I have a problem on my end where some audio just started playing. There we go.
Oh,
I got rid of it.
It's okay now.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right.
So yeah, as far as that goes, yeah, I mean, he's a very controversial figure. I can't say I endorse exactly what he's doing or anything, but I've been a fan of his show, and I still tune in from time to time, and lots of other people do too, and he has found a way to reach people. So there obviously is still a way.
Yeah.
There still is a way to reach people somehow. So and at least from these shows, also people are finding other content that's similar, which has a different point of view.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like it's a monolithic. It's not like everybody on D Live, for example, has the same views.
Yeah.
They might kind of all generally be counterculture and talk about some of the same general values, but I'm definitely very different from Nick Fuentes, from Owen Benjamin, from Red Ice TV. So people can get a lot of different viewpoints.
That's true.
At least on that platform.
Yes, that's absolutely true, and that's a great thing to have that. There is diversity within the community, no matter how you parse it, for sure.
Right, exactly.
Which sometimes allows division, which is pointless. But did you ever remember the Disinfo website or books or publishing? Did you ever know about them?
Something called Disinfo?
It was called Disinfo, yeah.
Disinfo books? No, I never heard about it.
Okay, I wonder how many people remember that, because this is a while ago, before like there was even that much stuff on the internet. They would like compile all these like news articles and sort of counterculture thinkers and their ideas about different things, like the Oklahoma bombing, but they have all kinds of stuff. There's like alien stuff in there too, and like Mothman, and they kind of run like the whole gamut. But that is one old school method, right, where you could just like compile the information written and start like handing it out.
Right. DVDs, I know people who get into doing that.
Well, that was one of the first 9/11 things I ever saw. Was actually a DVD that my like high school friend sent to me and was like, you have to watch this. And it was what one was it? It was like a plane Loose Change.
Yeah, maybe
it was called Loose Change.
Yeah. I mean, we might end up having to go back to those kind of prehistoric ways, underground newspapers. I've thought about whether I'd have to get one of those ham radios, if eventually that's all that's going to be left.
Well, they started cracking down on ham radio too.
I heard
that.
That's crazy.
Or you could go straight Alex Jones old school and put the like loudspeaker on top of your car and just drive around town.
Yeah, that would be cool too. I depending on how bad it gets, might end up getting there. Okay,
the next thing I was told to ask you is, what is Gay Taxi?
Oh, that's my phone number.
Okay.
650 Gay Taxi. It just happens to be what the numbers say.
That's your actual phone number, like your show phone number?
That's my show phone number.
Okay.
But it wasn't intentional.
It just happened.
It just happened, yeah. It's funny. It's easy to remember for people.
Someone called me once on a prank call, and they're like, your number is 331 dork, and hung up. And I was like, huh? And I looked, I'm like, oh my God, it is. Thank you. It was like a service they provided.
Yeah. So that's all it is, though.
And then I heard that you had recently started working a day job, and so I was wondering how that's going.
It's difficult. I wish I could talk about it, but there are so many issues with people calling people's works and trying to get them fired that I really can't get into it. But it's going okay. I had to work today. I mean, it's difficult work. I have to wake up early sometimes, but the good thing is I can do it. I get off early enough in the day that most days I can still do my show. That's awesome. Really important. And it pays money, not as much as I wanted it to. And, we'll see if it's enough for us to do all the things we want to do, like pay the rent and stuff. But, I was living with my wife, and I were both living with my dad in California, and couldn't afford to live there.
Wow.
And so looked at other alternatives, ended up looking at Austin, Texas. So just kind of without having anything set up, without having a job in advance or anything, just having what we do on the internet, which is she runs the store. My wife runs the store basically. Then I do the show, which brings in, at least brings in money, but not enough to really survive. So just had to, get a regular job, but it's good. It's good to know it's good to get out in the real world too sometimes, right? If all you're doing is this, then you don't end up really experiencing what the real world is like, what regular people are like. So haven't had a chance to really red pill anybody at work yet. But I did talk to them. I said, I'm a podcaster, and they asked about it. And I said, I'm not on YouTube anymore because of the censorship. And they're like, why? What do you talk about? I was like, well, 9/11, Sandy Hook. And they were like, oh, Sandy Hook. Yeah, you can't talk about that. But they didn't say, right?
So they didn't say like, screw you, you asshole.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Right. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So you never know. Maybe people are starting to get clued in.
I for a long time was still teaching when I was doing the show, and I'm taking this year off at least and hoping to figure out something else. But I know that sort of struggle with that balance of like work all day and then come home and do the show. But I did find that it was kind of like, what am I trying to say? Like refreshing, because you can then finally like be yourself really. So even though it's like kind of like more work, it was also like a really nice in a way to have that outlet still.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully it's that for you as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to do real work. I was living more luxurious life than I necessarily needed to, as far as how much time I had during the day to do stuff, take walks on the beach and all that. So I'm grinding it out now.
Yeah.
But I still, the show's still, I'm still able to do the show, and that's, so as long as I'm able to do both things, I'm okay with it. So things are going okay.
Well, and I think that things will start building more and more too here on DLive, and also hopefully in other ways in your store and whatnot. So you never know where things can go. But
we hope one day, the goal was that we do the shop, we do the show, and that'll give us enough to do during the day and everything. And, and at one point on YouTube, things were going pretty well, but then they started to clamp down on everything, and it just became impossible. So, but that's the way it goes. A lot of people who listen to my show have to work. So,
true.
There's no reason I shouldn't have to either. So,
yeah. I just hope I don't ever have to teach again. But I love children. Yeah. I love children. I love teaching itself. I just hate all of the layers of bullshit that go around it that are. Yeah,
that's unfortunate. It should be such a rewarding job.
And it is. It's just hard. There's, the whole system is poison. So, and most of the people in it are, and they don't know it. And it's really hard. I have the double-edged poison of being hated because I was really, really good at my job, and the students liked my class a lot and liked me a lot. And I had success with kids that like were harder for other people to reach and whatever. So there's sort of this like jealousy and hatred in it. But then I also have, I'm just laughing because my boyfriend is screaming in the chat room, teach again, give in to the dark side. But and also the other side of it is that the way I do things is frowned upon. And so I always would have this constant pressure to change the way I do things. And so that was stressful too, to be hated and constantly like railed on is hard. Even if the kids love you and you love the kids, it's like, that's not enough, which is really unfortunate because I think I'm good at my job, but.
Yeah. The worst thing is if you do something really well and then you still have people trying to tell you how you should be doing things.
Right.
Yeah, that's about the worst thing. So.
And I had the data even. I was like, look, the students who I did this with last year, their test scores went up on all testing, which I hate tests. I hate standardized tests, but like I have this evidence that like my methods work. But that still wasn't. It doesn't
even matter.
Nope.
Right. Yeah, that's an unfortunate thing about the real world. Yeah.
Yes. The people above you are not better than you, and they're not smarter than you, and they don't know more than you, and they're going to fuck you over no matter what.
Right. Well,
maybe not no matter what. But.
Congratulations taking a little time off.
Thank you. It's been the best thing I've ever done, honestly.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
But
Even though your husband says to get back to work.
yeah, he just likes to torture me. So what do you think that people who are listening could do to improve the things around them or in their life?
Improve themselves. I mean, we basically have a universe our universe starts from us. The things that happen around us are all a result of our perception. And so the only way anything is going to change is in your life, if you're a listener or whatever, is if you change yourself.
Yes.
So, that's probably the first thing you can do. And then, the people closest to you, having good relationships, keeping track of what's important to you. And then the things you do to change the world will kind of come naturally out of that, is once you've made some of the changes, then you'll find yourself doing the things that make the world a better place. I think.
Awesome.
So.
Perfectly said. I agree wholeheartedly. So what do you think are sort of the next steps for you on this path?
Well, that's a good question. What are we going to do differently? Well, I want to keep building things. I'm really hoping to build things on DLive. I hope that it'll continue to grow. I hope that, I'd like to say that I have some grand plans for how to do that, and I really don't. So, the show kind of evolves over time. I've been, lucky enough to have some really great guests on my show, that I wouldn't have ever expected to get on. I had John McAfee on. I was able to get Nick Fuentes on, even though that was a difficult interview. And I've had, a lot of these satanic ritual abuse survivors. And so I feel like I've been really blessed to, even though I don't do that kind of show often, I've been really blessed to have great people appear on the show, and I have a great audience. They're really awesome. So hopefully I can just keep growing it. And then also I do think I am kind of an economic apocalypse. I kind of believe that we're headed toward a real economic downturn.
Yeah.
Let's say.
It feels like that would be
really,
the easiest
really
way to control us all, honestly.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I believe, mathematically kind of inevitable that something bad is going to happen. And I do wonder what that's going to mean to the people who are out on the internet who think we're just living in a regular world.
Yeah.
If they're all of a sudden going to wake up, everything's upside down, and then they have to learn about the Federal Reserve, they have to learn about fractional reserve banking and that kind of thing. And so I want to be here doing this thing when that happens and see what changes. But
I like that goal. That's
cool. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, and as far as how things are going to work out financially, we'll just take it day by day. I mean, if that kind of thing happens, I don't expect I'll be able to, I don't know if my day job will exist. I don't know if people have money to donate to shows anymore.
Right.
So it's just kind of an unknown future. So in some sense, it's kind of the way I've always taken my show is I look at the news every day. I see what's interesting to me.
Yep.
And I present it on my show every night. I mean, that's kind of it. If I want to do an interview, I see, if I'm interested in somebody, I ask them to come on my show.
Yeah.
And I have them on my show. That's kind of the way I do things. And so that's kind of the path forward. I think it's worked out so far as well as it can. So that's probably what I'm going to keep trying to do.
Well, it kind of connects back to what you were saying. If you're like working on yourself, then, things will flow from there. Because I'm kind of the same way. I'm like very selfish. I'm like, well, I want to talk to this person, so I'm going to get them on my show because that's fun for me. And so far, my guests, my audience has really enjoyed that, which is awesome. And hopefully it'll keep being that way because I am basically in all things creative. I'm doing what I love. And if other people also enjoy it, I find that to be just a huge benefit and blessing, and that's amazing. But I'm never like working for other people, really. And I've had people tell me like, well, maybe if you swore less, more people could get into what you're doing. And I'm like, they can fuck themselves. Like, I don't care. I'm not doing this so that I can, get as many people. I'm doing it so I can be as genuine and true as possible, and hopefully spread as much truth and connection and community as I can in doing it. But again, that's kind of like the a corollary to it. It's not like the goal itself.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people if they wanted to get into this kind of thing, but it's true for life too. Do something that you really think is great.
Yes.
So do the kind of show that you think would be a good show. And then somebody out there is also going to think it's really good.
Absolutely.
Don't try to do something because you think people are going to like it. Do something that you would like. And that was, when I first started doing my show, I was like, God, I would just watch my videos over and over again. I never do that anymore, but I was like, oh, this is so great, and so other people like it. And so that's the best thing you can do. And that applies to real life too. I mean, obviously people have to find something they love to do and hopefully figure out how to do that thing and maybe make an income at it and be able to live their life with it. So, but yeah, it's really important. Everybody has to do something they love, because everybody has to do meaningful work. I mean, that's the thing people say is how you're satisfied in life. So.
Yeah, it's one of the keys to happiness.
Right.
And it's true if you're looking out at the world and you're like, God, I wish this thing was available. And it's like, well, then you should do that thing because that's what other people are looking for too, and they didn't even know it. Like I look at all these trampoline parks that are everywhere. And I'm like, one person just like woke up and was like, it'd be rad. It'd be rad to go just like jump on trampolines in a huge building. Like that'd be so cool. And then they did it. And now it's this huge thing.
That's funny. I never even heard of that.
Really?
Oh
my God. They're like everywhere I look now. It's those and these escape rooms are also like a big thing where they like make basically like a human-sized puzzle for you. You have to like try to figure out what's going on and get out of it. And those are also like spreading everywhere. And it's the same thing. It's like somebody just woke up on one day. It's like, this would be so fun. We should do this.
I have to get out into the real world. I have to see that stuff.
I think like if you have kids, you're more likely to, not that I do, but I have a lot of friends with kids. And so I think you're more likely to know because kids want to go jump on the trampolines all day.
Right. That makes sense.
Well, you kind of already took the last question, I think, and answered it on your own, which was what are your final words of wisdom? But before we get there, I like to have people know where they can find more of you. I know you have a site that you want to tell people about, and I don't know how to tell people where to find people on DLive. Like, I guess they would just go...
It's easy enough. You can just go dlive.tv/lifttheveil.
Okay.
That'll go straight to it. You can download the app. Search for Lift the Veil, all one word. If you type in lift, I think I'll be the first thing that comes up. So that's where I do the live show. I'm also on Twitch, but I direct people mostly to DLive. But you can also watch, there's also a podcast. I know you had a podcast.
I had it and my site broke.
Screwed up.
Yeah.
You can still do it again. You could do it you could upload stuff to SoundCloud and it would automatically go to iTunes and stuff.
But then I have to pay for it, and I was already paying for my site, and like I don't know.
Yeah.
You're right though. I could do it.
So anyway, I'm on. You can find me on podcast. Just you can type in Lift the Veil in Google and just check the results that come up. But DLive is where we like to do the main show, and we have the most people tuned in. We have a live chat. People are there now. dlive.tv/Lift the Veil, or download the app. And then just tune into the show, and then you'll get the other things I promote. My T-shirts are great. That's truthclothing.io. You can check that out. We have some really cool stuff, but we promote that on the show too. So yeah, it'd be great if people who listen to your show want to come on and check out what we're doing over there. Then you can also get introduced to some other people on DLive that are pretty cool too.
Yeah.
A lot of unique characters on there.
Your audience is pretty awesome. I appreciate them a lot.
Yeah. So
I don't know if you want to, since we're streaming on both your channel and my channel, do you want to check the comments and see if there's any questions that we can throw in before we're done?
I don't have anything. I don't have anything. I don't trust my audience to ask questions that are
appropriate.
Yeah, but that's all right.
I don't think I have any questions so far too. I think people are just kind of chatting.
Yeah, I think people are talking to each other. JJ wants me to talk about my stand-up comedy.
Oh yeah, I heard you were a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, I have done a little stand-up comedy, so I can at least say that I've done it.
Yeah.
And I have that posted on my website, my first full open mic, and I've gotten some decent reviews on it. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Don't know if I can get out there anymore or not, but I did enjoy that.
I'm guessing that
So
that's like way more terrifying than your show ever was.
it's but the show, how doing a live show, there's a lot of stress that goes along with it, especially at first. But that is, I I I knew, or I always thought that I would never ever do stand up comedy because it's the hardest thing I could ever think of possibly doing, and
Yeah.
people not laughing or whatever it might be. So I did challenge myself to do that, and I'm happy. I'm happy with what I've done so far. Maybe we'll keep doing that. I had hopes of maybe trying to make some money doing it eventually, but right now, if I get back out there again, it'll be anytime I can get through a set. Basically, that's a
Yeah.
victory for me. So,
Seriously.
yeah, yeah. So
That's pretty
that's something else we'll try to do on the side.
it's pretty cool to hear that, as well as that this is a goal and that you like set out to do it and then did it, because I think it's really important. I think we get stagnant sometimes and we just stop. We're like comfortable, and I think like pushing ourselves out into our areas where we're less comfortable or doing something that pushes us out of our comfort zone is really important to keep ourselves sort of like engaged and being alive.
Yeah, I mean, literally, one of the things that I started doing, and it was the way I was able to quit my job, was to start doing things I was really afraid of, and challenge myself literally to do whatever it was I was really afraid of,
Yeah.
and just do it. And so that was, stand-up comedy was probably the top of the list for that. But even live streaming, making videos on YouTube in the first place,
That was scary. Yeah.
I mean, it was really, I thought to myself, I thought myself, I could never do it. But then I said, you know what? Other people can do it. Then I can probably do it too. I can figure it out. And so, but challenging yourself to break outside of your comfort zone is definitely, you're able to, it's like practicing.
Yeah.
Because then the next time you have to do it, it's a little bit easier and a little bit easier. So.
True. Good point. I think it's good for people to hear too, because it was the same way for me, that I was like, I can possibly do that. And then people were like, do it. You have to do this show. And I was like, and finally I was like, fuck it. I'll do it. I'll just do it. Like, what's the harm? And that eventually led to this. And here I am now. And I've got like Rogue Ways gear and, things are kind of building. And so it's been pretty cool for me too. But yeah, it was terrifying and it's never been easy. It's easier and easier as time goes on, but like things change all the time too, like YouTube changed the way that you can do live streaming, and then they changed everything. And, and then there's DLive, and the equipment changes and the programs you're supposed to use change. And so it is constantly sort of challenging as well, which is neat. But I'm getting, people are yelling for me to talk to you more about Isaac Cappy. I guess people want to hear more about what you kind of maybe thought of him and what happened in that whole situation. And I mean, it was tragic in the end.
Lloyd Tucker Carlson Bear wants to know about Isaac Cappy. Yeah, okay. So let me give you my thoughts about Isaac. Isaac, I think, in my opinion, Isaac was a genuine person. Yeah. I don't think he was a LARP. I don't think he was a plant. I think he genuinely believed his story about his friend. I can't even remember the actor.
It was Seth
Green.
Seth
right?
Green, yeah.
I believe that he believed that story, even though it was hard to dissect exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I believe he believed that. I believe the people he named, a lot of them at least, he said it was just kind of well known in Hollywood about Steven Spielberg and about people like Stephen King and Tom Hanks and stuff. I mean, he didn't have any specific information about those people. He maybe shouldn't have been making those allegations without having specific information about those people, considering they could get harassed and other things about it, even though they're celebrities.
True.
So he might have been, saying some things he shouldn't have been saying. He got caught up with the wrong people, I think, which he was targeted, just like he happens. He was targeted by some really bad people, and they got involved in his life, and I think one thing led to another, and he became overwhelmed, and I took his own life. I mean, that's my impression of everything that happened. He was a really talented guy. I feel lucky that I had a chance to get to know him a little bit, and I I think that's about all I can say. I mean, there are a lot of people that think that he's shill or whatever it might be, or a grifter. I think he was very genuine person.
Yeah.
You know, he was trying to say the things that he thought were true, and genuinely wanted to be a nice person, and then just tragically lost his life. So
yeah,
those are my thoughts on Isaac.
I have a really random question. When you were talking to him, did he ever bring up anyone named Jamie, just as a regular person?
Not that I'm aware of.
Targeting him? Okay.
No. Oh, that was targeting him?
Yeah.
No. There was there was a person in his life that you know, is a kind of problematic character.
Okay.
That I think things go back to, but I don't want to. Well,
yeah.
It's there. The conspiracy theories about Isaac Cappy's death go on to this day.
Yeah.
You know, there's Isaac Cappy Twitter, basically, where it's just people still arguing with each other about what happened, or who was really friends with Isaac or who wasn't. I mean, it's just gone on. And, you know, I've kind of disconnected myself from it at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's just like a lot of things where you're never really going to get the clearest answer anyway. And the best you can do is kind of look at the things he said and did and take what you want from it and kind of move on.
Yep.
But either way, it was sad to see that. And he seemed in distress for a little while. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Someone's like calling out this painting here and saying that it's subconscious goddess moon archetype programming or something. And
You'll get that.
I'm like, it's just a painting that my boyfriend paints, and we switch these up every once in a while, but whatever you want to think.
Conspiracy theories. Now that you had me on the show, the conspiracy theories will really.
I've had a few. There was a segment I was doing for a little while that was that I was asking people who were watching to send like their positive intentions to a specific. We would have like a drawing almost of someone who wanted some like extra juju or whatever, you know, good karma or something. And so I would do like a little drumming, and we would all focus on that person like receiving whatever it was, and it seemed to have great success. Like the people were like getting real benefit from this. You know, like someone got like a washer machine, and someone's cancer disappeared, and like, so I was like, this is amazing. But someone kind of like lost it and was like, she's a dark witch and she's stealing our energy, and I was like, I'm just not going to do this anymore.
There you go. Be careful.
Yeah.
Well, it's all right. You know, you're going to get criticized if you say you believe something.
Right.
You're going to get criticized for it. So
that's true.
Just got to roll with it.
It's cool. I've got like the worst abuse I could from years and years of kids. So I think like it's all the same stuff, just on a different platform.
Right, exactly. Not much different.
Right. Well, so like I said, you kind of already gave some really heavy and really good wisdom out. But if you had to give your final words of wisdom, what you want people to focus on as as we're leaving them, what would you say?
Final words of wisdom. I think I've already put out there the things that I would recommend. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in though and listening to the show, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was a nice conversation.
Oh, thanks for coming. It's been awesome, and I appreciate you being here tonight. So fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom according to Nathan from Lift the Veil. Nathan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And they cannot stop the gayness I feel for all of you out there listening, and they cannot stop our voices from joining together in a pursuit of truth and an explosion of our will until our hearts stop beating and we take our last breath. Together with Doshi and all the other badasses behind the scenes supporting us, that's all of you out there right now, we can do this thing. We are unstoppable, united, and united we will stay, so long as we remember to travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's a one-on-one lesson, so do your homework. Make your dome hurt while up on earth. My bones are blessed from holy dirt. Vibes manifested to words that told me search for verbs and adjectives to describe birth. Worth more than one can speak. While the tongue beats a weak, a sour taste in your mouth, bittersweet. Words can also kill you when you sleep. Mind condition, low frequencies while the subconscious mind listens. I can tell a vision filled with lies disguised as truth, and spread it like the word to the youth. Watch the tube. A place where the God gets moved is sorcery. To recreate the God forgery does more than meets the eye. Not too many know. Just Just hear me flow like the eye of Horus Pinio. Yeah, not ready to leave until we believe we're free to go. You hear me, yo?
Sculpted from the ether, the material will eat ya. Stuck on this plane, lanes use jet fuel to greet ya. The dimensional three ain't meeting me on top of the fourth. Didn't climb Jacob's ladder to squab with a sword. Forged with Yggdrasil, branch down, try quiet your lamps now. Ascension past the matter that they slam out they damn mouths. We ain't on land now, but they over understand. Sacrificing wisdom, hoarding dumber, kosher, wicked hands. Putting faith in worthless worship of the mortals. Artificial portals, mass ingestion of the black goo. Bioengineered morsels, conversing with machine elves. Bypassing maggots, they stuck on Android screens now. I'm scrolling emerald tablets. Moloch living lavish, off the backs of the savage. Them clasped hands at the Sabbath. Smack of energy damage, they done twisted the tongues. But nanotech in the lungs, the awakening's begun. All they really can do is fucking run.